Michael Chin. Michael is the head of marketing at SocialFlow. Those who don't know, SocialFlow is a pretty cool tool that actually uses data from Bitly and Twitter API in order to help brands and publishers figure out when and what to tweet.
We're in a really fortunate spot as a technology provider to work with a really wide variety of customers. You know, everybody from the Pepsis of the world to some of the largest publishers like the Washington Post and The Economist. And the one thing that's been very interesting over the last few years that I've been doing this is seeing sort of the evolution of the industry sort of move, right? Because 3 or 4 years ago, I remember having a conversation with someone on a panel like this, and they were like, well, who would you hire? And it struck me that the first person I would hire as a brand is, I should be hiring anthropologists. I should be hiring people to understand what people are about through these channels. But you begin to sort of see, okay, that was sort of the really early stage, and maybe your business or your brand or your organization fits along that timeline. But as you get more involved, those needs change, right? Someone like George and his team, I would say, for the industry, fairly evolved along that way, right? So to me, it's sort of the first step is to understand where on that evolutionary timescale you are. I was talking to a pharma brand, and they were so far back. They couldn't even fathom the sort of stuff that brands like Pepsi and others are doing because they have all of these constraints. They don't have the culture in place, and they could hire the social media guru or what have you, but they're not going to get anything done just because culturally they're not there. So to me, it's sort of understanding where you are and building within from that point.
So what are the characteristics that you see of the people that are pretty advanced or beyond the guru's stage?
I'm going to say 3 things that I could think of right away, but I think brands that understand the full cycle. And what I mean by that is understanding how to engage or what to engage. So, having some form of a content strategy, having an engagement strategy, executing on that, looking at the data to understand what's come out of that, and feeding that all the way back in, right? Having that full cycle understanding, I think, is sort of the, kind of in my mind right now, the most evolved piece, right? The most evolved presence you'll see. As a data and technology and a data science company, we obviously, if you would ask me what the secret weapon should be, it's really about data, right? I mean, it's understanding that data, for one, but really how do you extract as much value out of that data as possible? And that's actually a really difficult thing to do in a way that adds value to your business. There was another thing that I realized pretty early on. We work with a lot of sort of brands and publishers, and I saw a lot of similarities in the programming aspects, right? So if you're editorial in a newsroom, you're programming for, whether it's your newspaper, your magazine, your website, your blog. And a lot of brands are starting to have to do that now. And I think we're seeing a lot of brands hire, former journalists or journalists that are laid off or what have you, because there's that talent, that skill exists, right? And it's about programming that. And the other thing that I've found is that brands have more content that exists that they're aware of. It's a question of how do you extract the value out of that, right? We're working with a large book publisher, and they never thought of putting any of their Tumblr or any of their other side sort of channels into their Twitter. We did, and it performed extremely well. And so brands are now starting to see, okay, it's not just Twitter content. What can I sort of pass through from the other social channels that I thought engage with, right? So I think Pinterest seems to be the one that's hot today, and finding ways to extract as much value out of what you're doing already. Because speaking more as a consumer than anything else, do I really want to be friends with Pepsi? Do I really want to be friends with Home Depot, right? In sort of real life, right? I mean, I don't think so. Pepsi's a product and a brand that I enjoy, right? But am I going to invite Pepsi home to hang out, with my family and, share my darkest, deepest moments with Pepsi? No, but I think what happens is people sort of mix up, right? Because we're like, oh, social's about being authentic, social's about being that. But like being authentic with a friend or somebody close to you is a whole different thing from being authentic as a business, right? And you know, the example of the press secretary where everything is spin, yeah, sure, you know, don't do that. That doesn't make sense. That's not a relationship. But also, you know, being, you know, really informal and what have you, if you're a pharma brand, makes absolutely no sense either, right? So maybe there's some point in the middle there. And to be completely honest, we're working through that right now as a company. You know, we've been having these debates within our own marketing team about, okay, what's our voice meant to be? How do we as a B2B brand sort of engage with people? Should we be, you know, poking people and things like that? So.